You are listening to the Information Security Notes and Podcast, episode 30, originally released on October 22nd, 2020. As always, I'm your host, Josh Amishav. This week, Luke Stevens, aka Hakluke, joins us to share some practical advice on how to crush bug bounties. My three main takeaways from our conversation were 1. Why the abundance mindset is so important, 2. How the music industry is actually very similar to bounty hunting, and 3. Despite the competitive nature of bug bounties, why collaboration is so important. You'll enjoy those three things plus a bunch of other tips along the way. Direct support for this podcast comes from BreachSense, the data breach monitoring platform. I'm curious, how many listeners to this show are confident that your personal credentials aren't floating around the underground right now? More importantly, how many of you are confident that your employees, your customers, your spouses, or your children's credentials aren't floating around the underground either? At BreachSense, we use human intelligence to capture stolen credentials before they get leaked to public forums and pay sites. We then crack the hash passwords to give you visibility into whether or not the account needs to be updated. Head on over to breachsense.io/contact to start your free trial and learn how you can prevent account takeover and stop online fraud. Luke Stevens, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Josh.
All right, so can you tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Luke Stevens, although a lot of people know me as Hakluke, and I am a bug bounty hunter. Although I haven't done a whole lot of that in the immediate recent times because I've also been working for BugCrowd, which is a bug bounty platform, as a manager for training and quality assurance. So that's been taking up a lot of my time just recently. And yeah, I'm an ex pen tester and an ex web developer and an ex musician, and I'm a dad. And yeah, that's what takes up all my time pretty much.
So how'd you get started in InfoSec?
Yeah, so when I first, well, I guess when I was at school, I kind of had this love of computers, developed this love of computers, much to my parents' dismay. And then I kind of finished school and I decided that I wanted to try and get a job. Well, actually, it was while I was still at school. I did a bit of work experience with this local company that was doing like a webmail solution thing, kind of like Gmail, but way smaller. And yeah, so I kind of did a bit of support there, and then that kind of turned into a bit of development. And while I was doing that, I started studying computer science at uni, which I never finished. And yeah, that kind of just snowballed into like me spending way too much time in front of a screen and burning out and quitting everything and becoming a musician for a while. And then I ended up getting back into development at the time. So I was a full time web developer for a bit, and then kind of switched over into security when I became a pen tester. And while I was a pen tester, I got really interested in bug bounties and started spending my evenings doing that. And yeah, now my whole life is basically just bug bounties in one way or another. So I'm very lucky.
So you recently wrote a blog post about crushing bug bounties in 12 months. And I want to go through some of the suggestions to kind of drill down to better understand how people can actually do better with bug bounties. So one of the things you mentioned is hack where there's less competition and
Yeah.
identifying new targets. I mean, with everybody running automated tools, how do you find new data points to attack before other people do? It seems like it's kind of like a just a race. It's like a race, but if everybody's running pretty much the same tools, then how do you actually do better at that?
Yeah, so that key point that you just touched on is at least to me, and at least in the time that I've spent doing hunting, like that's been the most successful thing for me, and that's finding fresh targets always. And there are so many different ways in which a target can be fresh. So it can be fresh as in the program is just opened, so nobody's really looked at it yet from a bug bounty perspective. But then there's a whole bunch of other ways too. So maybe a new subdomain pops up, or a new target comes into scope on the program, or maybe some DNS records recently changed on a particular target. Maybe you're constantly like monitoring the response from a service, like maybe HTTP is an obvious one, and the response has changed significantly. So that kind of indicates, or it should indicate, that like there's some change that's been made, either like a configuration change within, in this case, the web server, or maybe they've installed they've updated their website or they've installed some kind of new CMS or something like that. So basically, my whole theory around like having the best chance of like finding fresh targets for success is like constant constant monitoring for changes, and then whenever you see anything that changes, you kind of check it out, and if it looks suspicious, that's an indication that you'd want to probably dive deeper manually and have a good look at that.
Okay. Now, one of the other things you brought up, which kind of ties in with this as well, is to take care of your health, both mental and physical health. With the ups and downs of hunting for bugs, do you have any suggestions on how to deal with that mentally?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of the, at least for me, it's all of the classic stuff that your mum says. It's like, get enough sleep, eat the right foods, just like generally take care of yourself. Don't try and do like 20-hour days. Yeah, so that's like the generic answer, and I think that's what most people basically need to hear. It's certainly what I need to tell myself sometimes. But also, one of my big things that I always try and follow is always do what you love, always do what you enjoy. So I try and relate this back to music. Or I don't try like I learned this, I feel, when I was playing music. So when you're a musician, and especially if you're doing it in a way, you're competing, you're basically competing. It's really similar to bug bounties in that like there are a lot of people who want to be professional musicians, and only a few actually succeed because there aren't that many paid gigs, right? There aren't that many gigs you can get where you actually get paid like enough to live from, and you have to be the one that gets all of them or like a lot of them. So the competition is fierce, but it's also you're friends with all of the people that you're in competition with. So it's kind of like a weird thing. It's the same as bug bounties. Like it's a really tight knit community, but in some kind of sense, everyone's competing with each other. So the first thing is like get over the competition. Like it's so much better to just be friends with everyone and like just not see it as competition, because like you have to have that abundance mindset of like there are enough bugs for everyone, right? There's always more to be found. And it's the same in the music industry. Like if you're competing for like the same gigs that everyone else is competing for, then it's hard. But if you kind of like hustle in places that other people aren't, you can certainly make a living there. But yeah, bringing it back to bug bounties and mental health, like having that community around you, I think is super important. Having those kind of friends around you, and also being careful not to go too far down rabbit holes looking for bugs that lead you down paths of doing things that you don't enjoy. So, for example, I'm not constantly doing the things when I'm doing bug bounties. I'm not constantly doing the things that I feel will be the most monetarily the best thing for me to do, like financially the best thing for me to do. I might be able to make a lot of money, like looking for one particular type of issue and like grinding through a bunch of different programs looking for this one particular issue. But if I don't really truly love doing that, then ultimately what I'm doing is grinding myself into the ground, right? And if I continue to do that, I might be able to do it for like a week or something, but then I'm so sick of bug bounties that I have to take time off. So instead of doing that, I might do it for a little bit and then I start feeling myself getting sick of it. And I'll think, hey, I feel like doing some coding. So I'll maybe work on my automation a bit. And then I might like read some research about a new particular type of bug that's coming out, or something inspires me to do something else. And I'll do that. And like, I just have faith that in the long run, all of these little things that I'm doing are going to kind of improve me as a hacker and just make me better at hacking and bug bounties as a whole. And I think ultimately, like that keeps me doing what I love. And if I'm always doing what I really actually enjoy doing at that time, then I never really feel the burnout. Yeah. So it's like that double thing. It's like even if you're really healthy and you're looking after yourself physically and everything, if you're doing something that you hate for 8 hours a day, you're still going to burn out, right? Whereas like
Definitely.
if you're taking care of both sides, like you're doing things you love and you're physically like taking care of yourself. At least this is how it works in my brain. That kind of pays dividends in the long run. So that's my
Well,
take.
now you mentioned being friends with other people in the community, and you mentioned also collaboration. Why is collaboration especially when it's so competitive? Why is collaboration so important?
Well, every time that I've collaborated, I've learnt a lot about what other people are doing and what other people, the way that they think, and the kinds of things that they look for. Like, as a single brain, it's easy to kind of look at a problem and bash your head against it for days and get nowhere. And then someone else walks in and they've got a different upbringing. They may have worked as a pen tester for a different company. They might have worked on different programs that use this particular technology that you're looking at or whatever. Or they may have just like hit this problem before. And someone else can just walk into a problem that you'll never be able to solve and go, "Oh, have you tried this?" And all of a sudden, like, you've got a P1. Like that kind of thing really happens. It's amazing. And you know, I can't remember. I was reading a book recently, but I really resonated with this bit that said, whenever you have two brains working together, it creates a third brain. And that third brain is kind of like the extra knowledge you get by overlapping both of your kind of spheres of knowledge together. And I really find that that's a thing. So like, if you can find someone good to collaborate with, where like it's a real, truly a mutual collaboration, you both get a lot out of it. So it's really beneficial.
Cool. Now, we were talking before about what your secret power is, and kind of brings us to the 10th point. Talked about persistence. How do you stay persistent?
Yeah. So, yeah, I remember actually Stirk, who you had on. I was listening to one of your podcast episodes, and you had Stirk on, and he put a tweet up like ages ago about, you know, what's your superpower, and I thought about that for a long time. For some reason, that tweet stuck with me. But yeah, persistence. That's my ultimate answer. I feel like since I've been young, I've just like been really persistent about things that I get obsessed with. And one of those things was definitely hacking. Like, I just wanted to learn everything about it. So I spent a lot of time being super persistent about like learning it. And, it's easy to confuse that with like grinding myself into the ground, but you have to realize that like I couldn't stop doing it. Like, it was something that was really drawing to me. And I feel like a lot of hackers are the same. But actually, it was the same with music. So I got really obsessed with playing music, and I just wanted to learn everything about music theory and learn everything about the trumpet, which was the instrument that I played, and just like really like get really good at that. So that was another obsession that I had. And yeah, that's my superpower: persistence.
Cool. You had another blog post about interesting bugs that people are finding. And one of the things you mentioned there were a business logic flaws, which are really context dependent. Can you share some examples of things that people should be looking for or could be looking for in that space, in the niche bug space?
Yeah, so just I guess since I've started working at BugCrowd, and I've been there for how long? I think since March, and now it's October, so actually quite a while now, 8 or 9 months, is it? Anyway, basically, I noticed that a lot of our top hackers are the way that they find bugs is they are actually putting in the effort to properly go through applications, and they're like understanding how they work. I mean, this sounds so obvious to say it out loud, but a lot of bug hunters don't do this. They're just looking for like that next tool. They're looking for like the latest and greatest kind of thing that they can just use to drop P1s left, right, and center. But it doesn't really work that way. So a lot of our top hunters, what they're doing is they're actually just being very thorough on applications. And part of that includes like understanding within the context of the whole business that the program is kind of owns, what that particular application does, right? And the purpose that it serves, and what kind of things within that actual application would be a security risk. And then they're checking for those things. So when I say business logic bugs, it's a little bit of a vague term in that like a business logic bug could be almost anything within an application. That's the problem. But I'm kind of referring to things that are custom to that particular application or that particular business use that could be exploited. And actually, in that blog post, I gave a few examples which you can take a look at. I can't remember off the top of my head what they are, but yeah, I just like for finding them. It sounds like generic advice, but the way that you need to kind of frame looking for these types of bugs is like really truly understanding what the application does and its core use within the business, and then kind of looking for ways that you could exploit that. So one example I saw recently was an application that's meant to kind of make sure that your identity is legitimate when you sign up. So like it was very important for that application that the people signing up are who they say they are. So it had this whole identity verification process where you like upload your passport or whatever. And one of our researchers found a way to just totally skip that whole verification step and just have their account anyway. So that's a good example of a business logic bug, right? Just like skipping a step in a login doesn't sound serious, but when you put it in the context of the organization, that the whole purpose of this application is that you're verified, it suddenly becomes like quite a serious bug.
Okay, so for someone coming from a pen testing background, what kind of mindset changes do they need to make to be successful at bug bounties?
Yeah, that's a really pertinent question. And it's something that I actually struggled with a bit going from pen tester to bug bounty hunter. So when I first started doing bug bounties, it took me like a couple of months to start finding bugs. And it was really frustrating because like I could go to work in the morning and find like great bugs, like SQL injections and stuff at my pen testing gig. And then I'd come home and try and do bug bounties and find nothing, right? And, it's all got to do with the way that you're incentivized to work. So each type of work, like pen testing versus bug bounty hunting, it requires you to have a different mindset because of the way that you're incentivized. So as a pen tester, your job is to provide coverage and provide assurance that this application meets this particular standard of security. And you ordered a pen test, so I can tell you that I've tested for all of these things. It's kind of methodology based, but it also has that added assurance that like an actual human with human intelligence tested the application. So if there's any obvious bugs that wouldn't be covered by the methodology, the pen tester would have found those as well, hopefully. So yeah, it's totally different because as a pen tester, you're getting paid to do that, and you're getting paid based on the amount of time that you're spending doing that test. Whereas when you're doing bug bounties, you are getting paid for the impact of the bugs that you submit. And if you submit no bugs, you get paid nothing. If you submit a bunch of critical bugs, you get paid a lot, right? So that payment model totally changes the way that you hunt. So instead of like providing coverage, then you're looking for impact, right? And not only that, but when you're submitting bugs to bug bounty programs, you don't just submit things that you're like, oh, this might be a bug in future, or this SSL certificate is out of date, or something like that. Or not out of date, but weak SSL ciphers or something like that. You know what I mean? It has to have like legitimate, demonstrable security impact that you can like actually do something with it. So weak SSL ciphers are like, meh, like it's kind of informational, right? But they end up on every pen test report. So yeah, I guess like the first thing is in terms of like actually approaching bug bounty programs versus pen tests is a lot of the programs that you'll be approaching in bug bounties have much wider scopes. Sometimes they're just anything owned by company X is in scope. And then you've got like thousands of hosts to look at, which usually would not happen in a traditional kind of penetration test. The second thing is pen test is usually provided as a point in time test. So you'll have like 5 days or 10 days or whatever on a particular scope, and you look at it and you provide the report and you're done. Whereas in bug bounties, it's continuous testing. So you need to make that shift from like, I need to see if it's vulnerable right now to I need to constantly be looking at this whole scope and continuously looking for bugs because things come up that are ephemeral that like, a developer might accidentally expose like some kind of admin portal to the internet, and that's only up for 10 minutes. But in that time, like if you can spot that, it's amazing. Whereas like something like that wouldn't happen in a pen test that happens once a year. So that takes like a shift in focus from, I guess, like just testing what's there to testing what will be there in the future. So that's a good one. And also you have to get used to the idea that you're not the only one testing what you're looking at. So the people testing bug bounty programs there's a lot of them, and they're from very diverse cultures and backgrounds. They have specialities in different technologies and things like that to you. So like from a customer point of view, it's great because you can be pretty sure that if 1,000 people are looking at your scope, then someone is going to know about every technology that you have. Whereas like if you're just ordering a pen test, you've got one or two people looking at your scope, and chances are they have like a limited set of knowledge because nobody knows everything. So it's really good from that perspective. But if you're looking at it from a hunting perspective, it's good to be, I guess, an expert in particular things and then focus on those things. I've seen that too. Like we have some hunters that they only focus on like a few particular bug classes, but they are really, really good at those bug classes. So they clean up on that. So it's good to kind of think about that as well. Yeah. But those are the few things. So just to sum up, because I've been talking a lot, you want to be focusing on bigger scopes. That's one change coming from pen testing. The other one is like you're looking for continuous bugs, like ephemeral bugs and like things that pop up in future. So you need to be set up for that. And also you need to keep in mind that you're competing with like 1,000 other people who are experts in various things. So it's good to kind of be able to deep dive or go further than everyone else.
Can you just clarify again when you said the ephemeral bugs, like the bugs going to pop up in the future? Can you give another example of what you mean by that?
Sure. Basically, it comes back to the fresh target thing. So a lot of bugs that pop up, they're not there for long. And actually, I clued onto this idea because back when I was living in Sydney, I went to a security meetup where Shubs did a talk, also known as InfoSec AU on Twitter. And I can't remember the exact talk title, but it was something like finding ephemeral bugs or something like that. And Shubs is one of the founders of Asset Note, which is actually a program or a kind of scanning tool that specializes in doing exactly this, finding like monitoring external assets. Anyway, he did this talk on ephemeral bugs, and it was basically like bugs that just pop up for a little bit and then they're gone. But in the times that they do pop up, if you're constantly monitoring, you can like capitalize on those bugs. And the other thing is, it's not just ephemeral bugs, it's also bugs that pop up, for example, tonight. So if I'm constantly scanning all of the subdomains on Tesla and some kind of like old Jira instance just happens to be put on the internet in an hour and my scanner picks it up, that's great because I'm the first person probably to see that and I can quickly report it or exploit it or whatever. So yeah, that's what I mean.
And if you report it, but it's already been taken down because it went up and then it came down, does that still count?
That's a tricky question, but I would say probably yes. If you have like proof that you were able to do it, yeah, usually the team would be like, oh yeah, we can see that like some changes were made that would have put that online. And particularly if it's like an old Jenkins box and you can shell the box and like provide proof, like you put a file in the temp directory or you can cat the password file or whatever, then it's pretty obvious that you actually did have access. So yeah, for sure.
Now, if you would apply the Pareto principle, like the 80-20 rule to bug bounties, where would you say people should focus that 20%?
That's first of all, I love that principle, and yeah, it's so applies to bug bounties because I would say like a lot of the bugs, maybe not 80%, but a lot of the bugs that we receive or a lot of the researchers that we have focus on types of bugs that are really easy to find. And the problem with doing that is for the effort that you put into finding those bugs at scale, you don't really get anything back because someone's already found them all. So they're all duplicates. So I would say like instead of doing that, focus on things that are custom to you. So like things that you found by yourself that like might be like a particular misconfiguration in a service that you've noticed, but other people haven't quite clued onto yet. You might want to like focus on that, or you could focus on basically like the whole Pareto principle is that you're focusing on what works for you, right? So the problem is that like if you find something that works for you and then like everyone else clues onto it as well, then that 20% is going to change. So I would say like focus on research and focus on like finding new things. That would be the 20% for me. And
New things meaning new bug types?
new bug types, but in particular, like look at technologies that are commonly used. So, for example, a lot of people might use a particular bug tracking system, or a lot of people might use Amazon EC2 for their, their VPS boxes, or they might use what else? I don't know, like DigitalOcean database, or like managed databases or something like that. And each of those services, those were just examples, by the way. I don't have any specific like misconfigurations in those, but each of those services might have a particular misconfiguration that other people aren't really looking for yet. And something that we see, like something that I see from a bug crowd, like triage perspective, is that bugs types come in waves. So someone will suddenly clue on to the fact that, oh, hang on, there's this thing that a lot of people misconfigure, and it's exposing like these sensitive information. So they'll basically blog about that, and then we'll see like a lot of bugs come in from all different programs of that particular thing, and then like it all gets patched, and then they rarely come in after that. So the first person to clue on to those kind of misconfigurations and things they're the ones that have the most benefit out of it. So yeah, I would say that's something that you could definitely zoom in on for the 20%.
Cool. Okay, now I want to talk a bit about some of the projects you have up on GitHub. Do you have a particular favorite?
Oh, well, my favorite is How to Exit Vim. Probably the one that got the most publicity. I did a
I was sure you were going to say Hack Crawler. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay.
No, Hackcrawler, from like a bug bounty hunting perspective, that's a really useful one. Yeah. So basically, what Hackcrawler does is just goes to websites and crawls all of the links out of that website. And I've made it so you can like set different scopes and things. So you can crawl just from that subdomain, or you can like discover actual other subdomains or other domains, or you can just crawl the whole internet or whatever you want to do. But yeah, so that's like from a bug hunting perspective, yeah, that's probably the most comprehensive tool that I've written
And
so
then
far.
it's used to then discover new endpoints, new targets.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can set a depth too. In some ways it's quite a raw tool, so it doesn't really protect you from making silly mistakes. For example, you could set a depth of 100 and it would just like never finish on a lot of websites. Like if you were to scan Wikipedia and set a high depth, you're basically never going to finish, because it would just keep crawling and crawling and crawling. But yeah, and also it does some funny things, like if you set like google.com instead of www.google.com or something like that, sometimes it won't work. So you got to be pretty switched on when you're using it about the actual responses that are coming back. But it does work, and yeah, I found it really useful just for gathering endpoints. So like I guess one of the drawbacks I found when I was hunting was I really wanted to be able to dump endpoints and parameters and things that were in use without having to manually go through it and like gather them out of burp. I wanted a command line tool to do it, and there wasn't really anything that like suited my needs exactly. So I wrote one to do exactly that. So yeah, this can be applied at scale as well. So if you've got like your own bug bounty automation, you've got like a million hosts in there, you can run Hackcrawler on all of them. But yeah, and then you'll have like an up-to-date list of URLs. And prior to that, I was using things like Wayback URLs, which is actually also built into Hackcrawler. But the problem I was finding was Wayback URLs is not always up to date. So it only gets updated when Wayback actually crawls that website, which is sometimes pretty infrequently. So I wanted to be able to like do it for myself and like scan constantly a website so I can see when new endpoints pop up. Yeah.
So what configuration, like settings, let's say for the depth, or what do you suggest should you enable to make sure you don't have a runaway script?
I hate to give a vague answer, but it kind of depends. But yeah, if you're doing it at scale and you want to be super quick, maybe just set a depth of 1. Then you're not wasting too much time, but you're still dumping URLs out of like the robots.txt file, and the what's it called, the sitemap.xml, and anything that's on the home page, so you can get a pretty quick idea of like what's there. But my go-to command if I'm not scanning like a large amount of hosts is like maybe a depth of 3, depending on the website. But yeah, I should probably change it a little bit too, because the things are a bit confusing, but the options are a bit confusing on it. But yeah, you can run Hackcrawler if you want like the maximum output. You can use use wayback, which will also get URL endpoints using TomNomNom's wayback URLs. So it dumps all of those, and it also crawls it. If you put a depth of 2 or 3, you should get a bunch of URLs back, depending on the site, of course. And then I would use the scope string and just set it to YOLO or subs, because if you set it to www or strict, you might miss some URLs that are important that are on other hosts, like an API that calls or something like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
Cool. Okay, to close things out, where can people find you on the web?
Okay, so I'm pretty active on Twitter. So twitter.com/Hakluke, and it's Hakluke, HAKLUKE. There's no C in hack. But I'm also on YouTube, so you can go youtube.com/Hakluke, and Instagram, so instagram.com/Hakluke_. I'm so annoyed that I couldn't just get Hakluke on there. I've even tried messaging whoever owns Hakluke, but I think it's been inactive for like 10 years. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. My website's hakluke.com. When I post blog posts, they'll go up there. So yeah, that's about it.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks so much.
All right. That's it for today. If you have any comments or feedback, you can tweet at me at Jamus, JAMUSC. And if you got value from this episode, then please share with a friend. See y'all next week.